welcome back to my channel. I'm sure that by the title of this video, you know what it's going to be about, but I'm going to talk about Sarah J Maas, why I love her, and also why there are some issues with her books. Even though I love her, she's not perfect, and that's okay. We're all not perfect, but there is kind of in the book community, there is a lot of love for her, and there's also a lot of hate for her. And, there's a lot of gray area, where you may like some parts of her books or some of the books, and then you would like some of the others, or you don't like some of them. So I'm just going to talk about it, so you can get to know me a little bit more on this. Granted, even though Sarah J Maas is one of those authors that is an instant pickup for me, that I will instantly just read, even if the book isn't a complete 5-star, I still have a lot of love for her. And I think it's a lot of, kind of the worlds that she builds, the characters that she develops, just take my breath away, because throughout the span of her 3 series, there are characters that you meet along the way that aren't the main characters, but they are ones that live with you. They are ones that you love. And so I just kind of want to talk a little bit about that. And of course, why I love her books, why I gravitate towards them, but also, some of the things that I don't like about it. So definitely, stick around throughout the whole video. There might be some things that you learn that maybe you didn't know. So the first book is, of course, Throne of Glass. Now, this is her very first series. This series, it is kind of a love-hate for me, because the first 2 or 3 books are ones that I didn't necessarily like. Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight, I believe, is the second one. Just really didn't grip me. Okay, I am not one of those that likes just straight fantasy. I feel like there needs to be some romance in there. I feel like there needs to be not really spice, because I can do a fade to black romance and it still be just as amazing, but I just felt like it needed to be more. So if you do not know the Throne of Glass series, it is following Celaena Sardothien, who is an assassin. She is, kind of in like this prison. Whenever we first meet her, the Prince Dorian, he actually goes to get her because he wants to make her his champion. His father has this like champion games thing going on, and so he wants her to represent him. And of course, she wants out of where she's at. So she agrees to it, and you're following her along the way in the first 2 books, where, she gets kind of close to Dorian. There's a will they, won't they kind of thing with them. And then, Kale is his guard. And, then there is this love with Kale. So I feel like Celaena just doesn't quite know what she wants, right? She, wants to trust people. She wants, all these things, but at the same time, like, I just kind of feel like she's in that state where, she just doesn't know what she wants to do. And the first 2 books is all about her being the champion and what happens afterwards, and you start getting a little bit about the story. Now, I didn't like that. I didn't like Throne of Glass. I didn't like the second book, but I did trudge through it. I powered through it. I was like, okay, there's, quite a bit of books in this series. There must be a reason, why everyone loves it. I came into the game late with this because it had been out for several years by the time I picked it up. And I had heard, people loving it, people hating it. So I didn't quite like it. I felt like it was slow. I felt like there was just a lot of aspects missing. But what I did like about it was kind of the underlying plot. You're trying to uncover, what is going on. You're learning more about, Adarlan, and you're learning more about, what is going on, and, that there is this, evil that's going on in the world as well. So, like, she's learning more about it. Now, Heir of Fire which is the third book, she goes and she's trying to get, people for this army, to like do things. And she meets Rowan Whitethorn. And oh, Rowan, in Heir of Fire, I didn't like him because, whenever you first introduced to him, he's very standoffish. He's very, I don't know, rough around the edges, different things like that. But as the series went on, you get introduced to more characters. Manon, who is a witch, she's part of the 13. You get introduced to her character and how she comes into play. You get introduced to Alid and Lorcan, who is part of, the cadre that, that's made up with Rowan and Lorcan and stuff. So you're meeting these characters along the way. And, throughout the series, I would probably say whenever you get to Empire of Storms, of course the romance hits, but you're getting all of these different POVs, because whenever you're reading the series, there is a book called Tower of Dawn, which is Chaol's book. And Chaol ends up going to the southern continent, to get healed. Something happens. And, he's also trying to get people on Celaena's side, who is now Aelin. You learn about who she is. And, I didn't like his book alone. I didn't like it at all. But if you read it as a companion read with Empire of Storms, because they're both going on at the same time, you really start getting to love Chaol more. You really start loving his character, his development, because throughout the whole book, you're kind of like, why is Chaol, so mean? Why is it because, Celaena like scorned him? Like, what is really going on? And this is where Chaol really gets fully on board with everything, and I love it. And of course, Kingdom of Ashes, whenever it all, wraps up, it's a beautiful series. I have some issues with it. I didn't like how slow going it was. I didn't like how from Heir of Fire to Queen of Shadows, I believe, you get Celaena, who finds out she's Aelin, and all of a sudden, like, I just feel like between Heir of Fire and Queen of Shadows, she turns into a whole different character. And I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but like, I feel like she is more soft. I feel like, her views and the things that she's wanting, like, drastically shift. And I don't know if that's because of the romance that's going on. I don't know, because it's developing. I don't know if it's her totally embracing who she truly is and she's letting Celaena go. But I just feel like her character entirely shifts. And then whenever Manon comes in, I absolutely hated Manon. I hated reading from her POV at the beginning because, I just didn't like her character. I didn't like her personality. I didn't like anything about her. So I feel like reading Throne of Glass is a very big roller coaster ride. You have a lot of ups and you have a lot of downs. You have a lot of times where you're not into this character, especially whenever they're first introduced. I don't know if that's like a Sarah J Maas type of thing, because I feel like it, continues into her other series. So I don't know if it's just, she doesn't write it well. I don't know if she doesn't quite know how the characters need to be at the beginning, but that's one of the biggest downfalls that I feel like is in Throne of Glass, is whenever you're introduced to these new characters and these new situations, it feels a little forced to try to like them. It feels like, she's, putting it, really in your face, and, you don't know how to react to it. So that was my interpretation and my perception. But in the overall arcing plot of Throne of Glass, I loved. By the time that it ended, I adored all the characters. I loved it. I didn't want it to end at all. So I think she has a very good knack for that, for making you fall in love with characters. And making you, by the end, just absolutely love the world. Now, granted, not everybody likes the Throne of Glass world. Not everyone likes the other books. There's a lot of people that hate them, which is okay, because, like I said, I say it all the time, not everybody is going to like all the books. But that was my first taste of Sarah J Maas, if you will. And throughout the whole thing, I noticed that there would be times that I would be reading the books, for hours and not wanting to stop. And then there would be times that I would read a section or a chapter, and then I would just get to the point where I was like, I don't want to read this. And it would be several days before I went back to it. And so it was very hard for me with Throne of Glass. It was very hard for me to stay focused on it because I just felt like the plot at times felt really kind of iffy. I felt like some of the things that was talked about at the beginning never truly got wrapped up in a way. And so, I was very reluctant to continue with her. Although by the end, I adored the series, I didn't know if I wanted to go for that roller coaster ride. So, that happened. And then I had so many people telling me, listen, Throne of Glass, whether you loved it or hated it, you have to read A Court of Thorns and Roses. Okay? They were like, it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's amazing. I had people telling me all the time about Rhysand, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go on this roller coaster ride again with Sarah J Maas. So I picked up A Court of Thorns and Roses. And if you don't know what this series is about, it is about Feyre, who lives in the mortal lands with her family, who is very poor. Okay, her dad was a merchant. He, lost out on a lot of his stuff. They got very poor. Her mom had died. So she is the one that goes out and hunts for food. She's the one that goes into the village to, trade and sell and barter and all of these things to try to keep them alive. So she is out in the woods and she is hunting a deer. And all of a sudden, as she's getting ready to kill this deer, this huge wolf comes out of nowhere. She briefly thinks that it's a fae, because the fae and the mortal lands are separated by this wall. And so she thinks it's a fae because he's so big. So she gets out an ash arrow just in case, and she kills the wolf. Honestly, with no remorse at all. She just kills him, knows that she can't, carry it, so she skins it. She killed the deer, so she's, bringing the deer and the fur of the wolf with her. And so, that is our first introduction into Feyre. So I'm like, wow, this girl is brutal. She is a no-nonsense type of character, that does not hesitate. And I was like, okay, I can kind of dig that. So I was a little intrigued. And then, of course, all of a sudden, after she sells the fur and, of course, her sisters, Nesta and Elaine, they are like, oh, well, let's go with you to the village. I want to buy this. I want to sell this, and Feyre's just like, we don't have a lot of money. Like, we can't be doing this. But of course she gives in anyway because she loves her sisters. And that night, lo and behold, here comes, this big beast out of nowhere, barreling into their home, takes, Feyre and says, you took a life, now you're going to pay with your life. And she's ready to die. She's like, kill me now, let's go, but just don't do it in here. Take me to the woods. And he said, no, that's not what's going to happen. You're going to come back with me to Prythian, to the Feylands. And so she is like, no, just kill me. Like, I don't want to go. So he takes her. Come to find out, it's Tamlin, and he is the High Lord of the Spring Court. And whenever he takes her, instead of killing her or making her a servant or anything, he just says, live out your days in Prythian. You don't have to do anything. You just live here. That's all you have to do. And so Feyre is just like, what? Like, I don't understand. You're not going to make me work. You're not going to make me do all of these things. So she's kind of baffled by the whole situation, but she is trying to find a way home. So you're following her through her time there in the Spring Court. And, whenever she is growing closer to Tamlin, because at first she does try to get away. She traps a Suriel. She does all of these things that she shouldn't be able to do. So obviously she's a skilled hunter. Um, she is growing closer to Tamlin. She falls in love with Tamlin, has to go through these different, trials. Now, while I'm reading this book, I'm sitting there thinking, why did everyone tell me Rhysand is so amazing, right? Like, this Tamlin guy is perfect. Like, he treats her well. He, buys her paint so she can paint because she loves to paint. He, waits on her hand and foot. Their, chemistry at the very beginning is beautiful, very spicy. You got a lot of things. Now, you meet Rhysand, which you don't know who he is, at the time at Calanmai. And, at first I was like, is this Rhysand or is it not? But then, that was it. And so I kept saying, why is everybody so obsessed with Rhysand? Like, I'm so confused right now. And whenever you get to the part where she has to go to these trials under the mountain because she's trying to free Tamlin from his curse, and she figures out that she loves him, but she never told him until she gets under the mountain, until after the curse is already passed and there's nothing that she can do. So you meet Amarantha, she is a woman who just is very brutal, very unforgiving. And she tells Feyre that, she will release everybody underneath the mountain and, break the curse if she, completes these 3 trials, and each trial will be done at each full moon. So, of course, it's going to be 3 months that she's down there. And then she says, but if you answer my riddle, I will instantly break the curse and let everybody go. So she gives Feyre this, this riddle. And, she doesn't know, what it is. She's not good with riddles because, for one, she doesn't know how to write. You learn that very early on. She is very illiterate whenever it comes to reading and writing and things. So she doesn't know. So she's just like, great, I'm going to die here. Like, under this mountain. I'm never going to get Tamlin back. So, like, it's a big woe is me type of thing. And then you meet Rhysand, who ends up helping her through these trials. And, he's a very questionable guy because he helps her, but then he also, towards the end, before you get to the end of the trials, he, makes her get all of this paint all over her, where, he can see if someone touches her. He makes her drink this fairy wine, which makes her unconscious. And, she doesn't know what happens during those nights. And then she just wakes up in her cell every, time. And she's just like, what happened? She gets to the point where she goes to the fairy wine because she doesn't want to know what's going on. She just accepts it. Now, there was a time whenever after her first trial, she was very, like, broken and beaten up and all these things. So Rhysand went down there and to her cell, and he bargained with her, and he said, for 1 week out of every month, you're going to come with me to the night court, and you're going to stay with me for 1 week, and, I will help you, and I will heal you. And, of course, she's broken, mentally and physically, and she agrees, and, later on she says, I would have agreed to every single day of the year, at that time. And, of course, Rhysand says, I know, but you don't know that yet. And so at this point, reading A Court of Thorns and Roses, I'm like, I prefer Throne of Glass because there is a lot of very gray areas that are going on whenever it comes to consent, because Feyre does not consent to drinking the fairy wine at first, and God only knows what's going on with that. But, there's a lot of things that happen under the mountain. There's a lot of things that happen before you get to under the mountain with her and Tamlin, where it's kind of like a Stockholm syndrome, if you will, where she is cooped up in this house in a forced proximity with him. And all of a sudden, now she's falling in love with him. Is it really love, though? Because she's forced to be there. She can't go nowhere else. So who's she going to love? Lucien, who, wouldn't help her whenever she was with the Suriel. He didn't protect her with that. who is going to be the one that she loves? She's obviously going to fall in love with Tamlin because over time, mentally, he has, broken her down basically because she's trapped. And now all of a sudden he's her savior because he is, giving her free food, giving her paints, taking her to beautiful places. So of course she's going to fall in love with him. So I had a lot of issues with this book because I was like, I don't see how this is romance. How is this romance? Because this is not okay. None of this is okay. So I was quite disgusted with the first book, honestly. And there are a lot of people that don't like the first book. I didn't really like her and Tamlin together. I didn't really like, the whole love thing. Like, I don't think they loved each other. And I definitely didn't like what Rhysand was doing, every single night with her drinking the fairy wine. So just all around, I didn't like it. Now, you get to the end of the book, she breaks curse, does all these things, everyone lives happily ever after. So you think. And, at the time, I was like, you know what? I might like Rhysand more because he actually did help her. Tamlin did nothing. He actually put her in more danger. So that's where I stood with the first book. And I did a lot of contemplating if I was going to continue on because I was like, listen, I gave Throne of Glasses, a shot. There's a lot of things I didn't like about it. I ended up loving it overall, but a lot of things I didn't like. In this book, I was like, there's a lot of things I don't like, right? And so I was like, I don't know. And finally, my friend at the time convinced me. They were like, listen, the second book is much better. Keep going, yada, yada. So, of course, I did. And I read, the second one, A Court of Mist and Fury. And, of course, if you know the series, that is the number one book that everyone loves. And it ended up being an instant favorite for me. Because you get to know Rhysand more. And who is Rhysand? So hot. You get to know Rhysand more. You get to know, how Tamlin really isn't a good guy. And you get to learn about, Rhysand's court and, the world that he lives in and Valaris and all of this stuff. And then there's this overarching plot about this, war that's coming from Hybern. And that's a whole different, aspect. And so I ended up falling in love with this series. Now, I do feel like A Court of Mist and Fury was a little bit too long, only because Sarah J Maas loves to repeat herself a lot. And that is one thing I don't like. Like, this book did not need to be, 700 pages? Did not need to be that. So my whole part is, I loved the book. I instantly picked up A Court of Wings and Ruin, and, it wrapped up the whole war thing for me. Wasn't my favorite out of the trilogy, but I loved it more than the very first book. Then A Court of Frost and Starlight came out, and what a letdown that was. It's a novella, and of course, it's all about the winter solstice, and it's all about, all of that. And so I didn't like it. I felt like it was not needed. It was not something that I enjoyed at all. And then A Court of Silver Flames came out that was about Nesta and Cassian. Boy, do I have some thoughts on that, because I hated Nesta. I really don't even know if I still like Nesta, to be honest with you, but I don't hate her near as much as I did in the original trilogy. But her and Cassian are good together, but it is spicy. Like, oh my goodness. You think A Court of Mist and Fury was spicy, you ain't seen nothing yet. Sarah J Maas pulled out all of the things, and I was just like, I feel like I was reading an erotica, and I felt like, in my personal opinion, it was too much. And I will read a lot of spice, okay? It was too much. And not my favorite book out of all of it. I did not care about Nesta's story or her, character development at that point. Did not care. So I'm ready for another book. I hope it's about Azriel or Elaine, or give me something that's not a book about just sex. That would be great. So I loved the whole Court of Thorns and Roses trilogy. I did, because of Rhysand. and because of Feyre and Cassian and Azriel and more. They made the whole story. I could care less about Nesta and Elaine. I could care less about Tamlin. I could even care less about all of that. They made the story. I would like more of that, please. So I loved it. It's one of my favorite fantasy romances. So then, lastly, Sarah J Maas comes out with her new series, which is called Crescent City. Okay. This book is either a love-hate. There's no in between. Because this book is chunky, for one. Because Sarah J Maas loves to repeat herself. Just loves it. And I don't know why. Because this book could be at least 200 pages less and still be good. So you're following Bryce, who is half Fae, and they live in Lunathian, and, you know, her best friend Danica is dead. And so, of course, she's grieving from that. And, you know, then all of a sudden there is this, you know, mystery to unsolve because there are people that are dying. And then Hunt Athalar, who is called the Umbra Mortis, he is like the Dark One. He's a fallen angel. All of these things. And he is paired up with her. And I'm going to say something that a lot of people probably wouldn't agree with me on, but I do not like Hunt and Bryce together. I do not like their love story at all. I feel like it's very forced. I feel like it's very fake. I don't feel the connection with them like I do with Feyre and Rhysand, or like I did with Aelin and Rowan. I do not feel that. There is nothing there for me that makes me swoon over this. And part of me wonders what Sarah J Maas is thinking, because how on earth can these two love each other? That's what I want to know is, you know, how can they love each other? Granted, there's people that absolutely love Hunt. They think that he is just the epitome of male. And I just don't feel that way. I don't like Hunt's character. I don't like his interactions with Bryce or anybody. Now, granted, there are moments in Crescent City that, you know, he makes these choices that make me say, well, maybe I might have a different opinion. But overall, I don't feel his character. I just don't. And I feel like, you know, Bryce would be better off with literally anybody else than Hunt. And that's just my personal opinion. I am not swooning over this, you know, love. So I digress. I could probably go on for 10 minutes about it. But Crescent City, you know, is a very chunky book. It is, you know, very adult. Definitely proceed with caution. You know, if you have any of the trigger warnings that are done in there, especially with the death of Danica and the grieving process and things like that. But Bryce, I love Bryce. One thing that Sarah J Maas can do is write a good female main character, because all of her female main characters are very like bold and brave and, you know, willing to do whatever it takes. And they're very strong female characters. And I think that she does that very, very well. Now, her males, some of them need work. Okay, some of them don't. Some of them are perfect, like Rhysand. But overall, she writes a very good female main character. She also does a very good job with world building. Now, it's very overly descriptive in certain parts, and it can be very, like, info dumpy, especially Crescent City. Oh my goodness, you're talking about, like, this much of the book is, like, info dumpy. That is how Crescent City is. And it's overwhelming. Like, it took me probably 3/4 of the book to really get into it. And I was just like, whew, how much of this do we need to know right now? Maybe not all of it, but, you know, nonetheless, I kept reading. And, you know, Crescent City wasn't bad. I feel like out of the 2 books that are already out right now, I feel like Crescent City was better. In the fact of plot, in the fact of, you know, what all is going on in the world, and Bryce and the, you know, side characters and stuff. I definitely loved Crescent City. House of Sky and Breath is even longer. And it is the second book in the series. It's longer. All I can say is Rune Dannon. Rune Dannon, okay? Please remember that, because Rune is, holy cow, amazing and hot and sexy. And what was it, chapter 3, I think it was, from Rune's point of view? Perfect. Oh my gosh, amazing. So House of Sky and Breath continues on. Of course, we wrap up some of the plot in Crescent City, but the overarching one has not been wrapped up. So you're in House of Sky and Breath, and you're getting even more POVs. You are, following a lot of the side characters. You're, hearing about what they're going through and how they're tying into the plot. And then you have Hunt and Bryce's romance, which I just cannot stand. Please tell me she's going to get somebody else. Please. Because Sarah J Maas never lets the female main character stay with the first love interest. So please, Sarah, cut that. I'm done with Hunt and Bryce. So, Hunt and Bryce are, a thing. They're trying to go through and, figure out more of what's going on. And then you got, Rune. I even have a shirt that says Daddy Rune Dannon, okay, from the Bookish box. That's how I feel about Rune Dannon, okay? And, then you have, the other side characters. At the moment, I'm drawing a blank on who they are. But you have the one from House of Many Waters and, his POV and kind of like what he's going through. The thing that I do not like about the Crescent City series is, one, it's very, very long. I don't feel like it needs to be as long as it is. 2, Hunt and Bryce. I don't need to say more about that. You already know. Also, Sarah, you need to stop repeating yourself. You don't need to say the same paragraphs every other page. Okay? Like, do something different. Make them shorter. Okay? Or if you're going to make them longer, don't repeat yourself. Give us more. Give us more Rune, please. I'll take that. I'm ready for the 3rd book. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but the way that House of Sky and Breath ended really was a big twist. And I did not see that coming, but I'm happy it came, because I feel like, I can't really say. I just feel like it is needed. Okay? It's needed. Because if you know, right? So I was very happy with the way that it ended. I know some people are not, but I was very happy with the way that it ended. However, the 3rd book, I think Sarah did mention that she is working on the 3rd book whenever she was talking at the beginning of the year, in like February time frame. So I am ready. Now, we're probably not going to get it until like middle or end of next year, if not the beginning of 2024, which is very sad, because I do want the next book. The way that it ended, I just need to know what's going to happen. And so Sarah has that great way. Like I said, I have explained throughout all 3 of her series some of the things that I just do not like. And please leave a comment below. Let me know what you like and you don't like about it, because I'm sure there's more, reasons of why people like or do not like her books. The one thing that Sarah does a great job of, like I said, not only is the plot and the story and the main characters and swoon-worthy guys, but she wants you to read more. Like those cliffhangers, oh my goodness, she's a queen at that. And on top of that, like, once you get so far into her books, you're hooked. And it's like you want to keep reading. It's like you're an addict and you just want to keep going. Now, granted, not everyone feels that way, but that's how I feel, and that's how a lot of people feel. And so I guess Sarah's really good at making you addicted to her series and her plot. So I know this video is seriously long, and I am so sorry about that, but I just wanted to take the time to kind of vent and talk about my most loved author in series and also my most hated author in series, because she is both. Because there are things that I absolutely hate that I just want to sit down and just be like, Sarah, why? Why this? Why that? Why did you need to do that? But in the end, I absolutely love her, and I'm going to keep reading her, because I feel like a lot of the things I hate or a lot of the questions that I have are gonna be wrapped up. The way that she's going with the Crescent City series, I really feel like it's gonna be wrapped up a lot of things in my mind. So I'm super excited for that. So I'm gonna end this video. It's seriously long, but leave me a comment below. Let me know if you've read the series, if you love her, if you hate her, why not. Head on over to my Instagram that will be in the description below. Let's talk there. I'm serious. Come message me. We'll talk. If you hated it, if you loved it, if you agree, if you disagree, that is okay. I'm not the one that's gonna, fight with you about your opinions. I want to talk to you about them because I want to pick your brain. I want to know why, right? Like, let's talk. Like this video, definitely subscribe. Like in my previous video, I do have a vlog coming up because I'm going to Authors in the Bluegrass at the very end of September. So be on the lookout for that. But until then, everybody, like, subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye.